Hey everyone, welcome to another sit down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope you all enjoyed Mob Movie Monday this past week. Pope of Greenwich Village. Good movie. If you haven't seen it, take a look at it. I thought we did a good review. Comments were great. Know you enjoyed it. Join.Michael Franzese, Inner Circle. It's growing. We did a live last week with my crew, and people are really getting into it. You can ask me questions, any question that you want. I told you I answer just about everything. Unless I don't want to, then I know how to take the fifth. We know that, right? But yeah, the crew is really growing, people. MichaelFranzese.com to join the crew. Join.MichaelFranzese.com to join the Inner Circle. And that's a whole nother level of engagement with me. But thank you. It's really growing in both areas. And what else do we have to report? We're over 600,000 now in subscribers, again, in just about a year. God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate the loyalty and the fact that you enjoy the content, and we will keep working hard to give you good stuff. Now, today, you know, a lot of the things that I do, I pick up from the comments that many of you make. I get so many questions asked of me, different areas. Yes, a lot of mob-related stuff. And yes, just a lot of life-related stuff. And one question that I got really kind of struck me, and I really started to think about it, and that was, Michael, what would you tell the 20-year-old Michael Franzese today? Knowing what you know now, what would you tell Michael Franzese at 20 years old? And I think that's something that can apply to all of us. Now, naturally, if you're 20 years old, this is really important for you, so listen up. And if we pass that stage and, you know, we're blessed enough to live on in life, you know that I'm 70 years old now, so that's 50 years ago that I was 20. But I've certainly learned a lot since, and there's a lot of things that I thought about that I think I would tell my 20-year-old self. And things, hopefully, that would be to improve my life, to make me a better person, to have me not make some of the mistakes that I made and suffer some of the consequences that I suffered as a result. And the first thing that I would have to say, you know, that was, I turned 20 in 1971. Now, let me set it up for you at that time. The 1960s were a really turbulent time for me. I had a lot of turbulent times in my life. But this was the decade that my father was in and out of trouble. It was the decade that he finally went off to prison. But during that time, there was a lot of turmoil in my house. My brother and sisters were young. I was kind of the dad to them because my dad was in and out of prison. He was fighting 3 cases that he had, 3 with the state of New York, went to trial 3 times. One was a murder charge, so he was incarcerated during the time that this case was pending and tried until we got the verdict for him, which was a not guilty verdict. And then he gets indicted on the federal case, and he goes to trial up in Albany, New York, and my parents are up in Albany, and I'm going back and forth to the courthouse. I'm taking care of my younger brothers and sisters. I'm going to school. It was a turbulent time for me. So 1970, in April, I'll never forget, my dad had been convicted on a federal case. He was out on bail for 3 years. Back then, you were able to stay out on bail. My dad, you know, he wasn't a flight risk at the time. It was Holy Thursday, you know, the Thursday before Easter in April of 1970 that my dad lost all his appeals and was brought into prison and was shipped off to Leavenworth Penitentiary at that time. I was 19. I was entering my 20th year, right? Shortly after that, shortly after my dad goes away, within months, Joe Colombo forms the Italian-American Civil Rights League. I was home at my house in Roslyn, Long Island, when Joey Brancato, who was a soldier of my dad's, calls me up and says, Michael, Joe Colombo's son, Joe Jr., who I knew well, we were close with the Colombos, has been indicted on some BS charge. Joe Colombo Sr. is not standing for it. He doesn't want this harassment of Italian Americans anymore. And we're all going to picket the FBI building on 69th Street and 3rd Avenue. We want you down there tomorrow morning. Wow. My dad was framed on a case. I believed he was framed on this bank robbery case. And I felt kind of responsible in a way to help my dad, you know. But I was a college student. I was at Hofstra University, biology major. And I was going to medical school after this. But I was excited when I got this call. Next morning, I'm down there. By the way, my mother didn't want me to go. You're a college student. You got no business going on the line. She wanted me out of it. I didn't pay attention to my mother. I said, Mom, this is going to help Dad. We got to go. Boom. I'm there the next morning. I'll never forget. They created this sign, and I'll never forget what the sign said. My dad is a victim of FBI Gestapo tactics. He was framed and sentenced to 50 years in prison. That's the sign that I wore. First day on the line, right? And there was maybe 30, 40 of us, I don't remember exactly, that started walking that line. You know, the cops set up the barriers, and we were walking on 3rd Avenue and 69th Street right in front of the FBI building. They never seen anything like that. So now, again, I'm just about to be 20 years old. All of a sudden, on that line, you know, a lot of made guys. Every day that line started to build. It got bigger and bigger and bigger, and relatives and friends. You know, before you knew it, there were thousands of people on that line. My mother happened to be there this particular day, and my girlfriend at the time, who later became my first wife, Maria, was there. We had walked across the street. We broke the line, or left the line, walked across the street to get a coffee or sandwich or something. On the way back to the line, I'm with my mother and my girlfriend, and some guys go by in a car and they start yelling out, "You guineas, you wops," you know, those are bad names to call Italians. I yelled back at them. I don't know what I said, you know, dumb kid at the time. And one of the cops tells me, "Hey, shut up and get back to where you're going." And I said, "What are you yelling at me for? You heard what the guy said. Don't bother me," right? So he says something, I say something. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I threw a punch at the cop. And I hit him. That was it. About 10 cops come over. They start banging me with the billy clubs. I'm on the ground. You know, we start to fight. It's a whole big thing. They pick me up. They throw me in a paddy wagon. Joe Colombo happened to be there, and he makes the whole line surround the paddy wagon so it can't leave. And he's negotiating with the police to see what they were going to do. He tried to get me out of there, said he's a young kid, his father was framed. You know, the cops weren't having it. You hit a cop, you got to go down, you're getting arrested, right? Why am I telling this story? This was kind of my frame of mind. I already didn't like the police. I didn't like law enforcement because I felt that they were harassing my dad, harassing my family. We were under 24-hour surveillance. I had many run-ins with them. I loved my father. People all know that. I idolized him as a kid growing up. And so they were the enemy to me. So this was kind of the mentality I had. Now, before I'm 20 years old, I'm already, you know, brewing or developing a bad mentality. You can't go against the police. You just can't. You're not going to beat law enforcement in this country. Got to learn to live with it. Most of them are good. The greater percentage of them are good. We need law enforcement. We're seeing that right now in America. You cannot have a civil society and order in this country without law enforcement. You just can't have it. Defund the police is crazy, but that's not the topic for today. But anyway, that's my mindset. So now, shortly after this, I go visit my father. "Dad, I'm not going to school anymore. If I don't help you out, you're going to die in here. You got a 50-year sentence." He's upset with me. "No, I want you to go to school. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be the first professional in the family." I said, "Dad, my mind's made up. I'm not going." You heard this story, but I'm getting to the point. "The league is going to help you." You know, I should have realized something back then. My dad said, "That league is not going to help me. Forget it. Get back to school." He knew something, obviously. My dad was a great student of the life. I think he knew that that league wasn't for him. There was something political in Joe Colombo's mind. My dad was his underboss. He knew Joey well. I knew him as Uncle Joey almost. You know, I cared for him, and I respected him in that regard. And he was the boss of the family. My dad knew something then. "I don't want you to stay in that league." "Dad, it's going to help us." I was a headstrong kid, quitting school. That's when my dad proposed me into the life. Now, I'm 20 years old when he proposes me, right? So what would I tell my 20-year-old self now? First thing I would say was, you should have listened to your dad first off. The street life wasn't the life for you. And I've said this many times before. I had no aspirations to be on the street. It's not what I wanted. I wanted to go to school. I don't really know if I wanted to be a doctor. My dad wanted me to be a doctor. My mom wanted me to be a doctor. It was like a dream. I was really doing it more for them, even though, I did respect the medical field. Obviously, I respected it. But I didn't have this passion and this drive to be a doctor. I said this many times. I wanted to play center field for the New York Yankees. That's what I wanted to be. I just wasn't good enough, right? But I was an athlete at the time. My dad says, okay, if this is the route you're going to go, okay, he proposed me into the life. Now, Today, I would tell Michael Franzese, listen to your father the first time and do not get involved in the street life. Now, let me tell you this. I don't regret everything that I did in that life. I can't say that. I can't change it, obviously. But do I regret going into the life at all? The answer is yes. It was the wrong move for me. It was a mistake. And some of you may say, but Michael, look at how your life worked out now. That's true. I'm alive, I'm free, I'm 70 years old, I got a beautiful family, and I'm living okay. But we don't know what would have happened had I not got involved in this life. So the street life, the mob life, the gang life, it's not something that we should get involved in. It's not. People, there are illegal activities that happen in those lives, and as a result of those illegal activities, there are consequences, sometimes very severe. In a mob life, prison, you could lose your life, you know that. You hear many guys on YouTube now talking about that stuff. Okay, it's not a life that anybody should get involved in. It's not a life that's conducive to a good family life. So the first thing I would tell Michael Franzese, go straight. Do not get involved in the street life. And I'm telling all of you at 20, if you're thinking about getting involved in a gang or in the street life or any way, stop right now. It's a dead-end street. You're going to get yourself in trouble. Number two, would I tell myself, would I tell Michael Franzese at 20, get into college, get an education? Knowing what I know now, I don't think so. Now, you may say, Michael, come on, education is so important. Yes, education is important, but it's what you do with that education that's even more important. Now, I can speak from authority now. I have 7 children, okay? I put a number of them through college, and I can tell you that. I don't want to say it was a waste because they got the college experience, but I can tell you that they're not all using what they learned in college to benefit them with what they are doing today. So here's what I'm saying about getting an education. It's important to be educated, but be educated in the area of life that you want to pursue. May not always be in college. It may be pursuing a trade, maybe a trade school. If you want to be a carpenter, college may not be the answer. You know, if you want to be in business, college may not be the answer. I'm a business guy. I can't say that the 2 years I spent in college have benefited me. I don't think it benefited me at all. I'll be honest with you. Now, if I was going to be a doctor, obviously I need the education in college because you can't get to medical school without getting through college. But you got to be really careful about what you want to pursue in life and how you're going to pursue it. So get an education, but get it in the area that you have an interest, the area that you want to pursue. So I would tell Michael Franzese at 20, number 2, figure out what it is you want to do in your life and then get educated in that area in the best possible way that you can. I wanted to be in business. You know what? I didn't even know that at the time. It just kind of happened. I just kind of got into business. I didn't say, hey, I want to run a major company. I want to be in the automobile business. I just had a mind for business, and wherever that led me, that's where I was going to go. So I would tell Michael Franzese, okay, figure out what it is you want to do in life and start to educate yourself in that area. Number 3, what I would tell Michael Franzese, and I've said this before, I'm being redundant, but that's the topic today. I would say surround yourself with the right people, because in this life, we are who we hang out with. Now, somebody, in a statement that I made, came back and said, Michael, you are who you hang with. Does that mean if I hang with you, I was going to be a Mafia capo regime? I didn't say that. I said, you are who you hang out with, meaning that the people that you associate with are the people you're going to turn out to be like. It makes sense. When I was in the mob, obviously, I was hanging out with other guys that were mobsters. So we were doing some of the same things. We were doing things that mobsters do. Obviously, now I got out of the mob and I'm doing other things. So what I would say is surround yourself with the right people. It is so important. Along with this is accountability. I've said this again too. Who you are accountable to in life is who you're going to turn out to be. Once again, when I was in the mob, I was accountable to my boss. I was accountable to my oath. I took an oath, and as a result, I had to abide by the rules of that oath. That's who I was accountable to. So I did what I had to do on the street, and obviously many times it was the wrong thing. Landed me in prison, you know, caused me to do illegal things. I had a different moral compass in some ways back then because I was accountable to something that wasn't right. Different now. I'm accountable to my God. And I'll say this, you know, some people, oh, Michael, I'm not preaching. I'm accountable to God. I'm accountable to my wife and children, to the people that depend upon me, okay, and that have confidence on me to do the right thing. So I would say to Michael at 20 years old, who are you going to be accountable to? Be accountable to good people, the right people, people that care about you, people that want to see you do the right thing. And the way you do that is by associating with the right people and learning to determine who is right and who's wrong. Get a good sense of people, you know, right off the bat. Not saying not to be trusting, but try to get a good sense of people as early as you possibly can in your life. Number 4, I would tell Michael something that I think I already knew at that time, but I'm telling Michael again, I'm telling all of you, have confidence in yourself, not arrogance, but confidence. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance. Don't be afraid of failure. You can be a risk taker in life, but not silly risk, calculated risks. Okay, you don't take a risk where you're going to jump off of a cliff, you know, that's 50 feet in the air, hoping that the water underneath is not shallow. That's a silly risk. But a calculated risk, something that you thought of, that there is a little bit of risk, you did your research in it, okay, but you feel confident enough that you can take a shot, because so many things in life are risks. There are no real sure things. So don't be afraid to fail. If you're taking a risk, there is a chance of failure. You can't be afraid of that, because if you never tried, you're never going to know. And the regret you're going to feel is a lot worse than if you never tried it at all, believe me. So don't be afraid of failure. You know, failure, I was never afraid of that, but I would tell young Michael at 20 years old, don't be afraid to fail, because you are going to fail along this way as you try to achieve success, and you learn by your failures. You don't recede, you don't hide, you don't, you know, shun yourself from the public. You pick yourself up and you get back in the race, like old Blue Eye says, and you just keep going. Because that's the confidence that you have in yourself to know that you're going to make it. You know, I sat down with Chaz Palminteri, and it was a very interesting conversation. He said, Michael, I knew from day one that I was going to be a success. He said, I knew it. He said, I just felt it. I knew it was in me. He had that inner confidence. It wasn't arrogant. He wasn't an arrogant guy. He isn't an arrogant guy. Well, you know what I'm noticing too? You have a lot of confidence. You got to have confidence.
Yes.
You know, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance.
Totally.
Total difference. And you have a lot of confidence, and yet I can see there's a humility in you.
Yes.
You just feel good about it.
You just feel good.
You know, it's like
on Broadway,
you did something.
You
had
did
an
something.
impact, you know?
On Broadway, when you work a Broadway show, all the people lining up, they want to sign. And sometimes in the wintertime, you do a show, it's cold. And sometimes I'll get the producer say, Chaz, you know, it's freezing out there. I don't want you out there. You can't get sick. And I go, they're out there waiting for me? I'm going out there. And I go out there. And I sign, and I talk, and I sign, and I'm bundled up, air's coming out of it. But you know what? Those people, when I could do another show, they come back. They see me again, Michael. I'll get fan things saying, this guy was out there, it was freezing. I do it.
The one characteristic that every successful person has is confidence in themselves. They know some way, somehow, they're going to overcome obstacles. Nothing is going to stop them along the way. They're smart, and they're going to achieve their goal one way or the other. So, what do I tell 20-year-old Michael? Number 4, have confidence in yourself. Don't be afraid to fail. Take a risk. Make sure it's a calculated risk, not a silly one, and you'll go the distance. You know, number 5, what I would tell a 20-year-old Michael is have a good moral compass. Establish that early on, and for me, it's all about my faith, my belief and trust in God. Now, most of you know that I am a person of faith. I am a Christian. But I want to tell you, I don't put other faiths down. You know, one of the things that's very satisfying to me is in many of the comments and a lot of the messages that I get, you know, on social media, people thanking me. A lot of Muslims have thanked me for just expressing my faith, even though there are some differences, obviously, in Christianity and the Muslim faith. But they thank me for talking about it. And, you know, people, I don't like to preach. I'm not a pastor. I don't go out and preach. I don't impose my faith on anybody. I'm not trying to turn anybody into a Christian. I can't do that. That's God's deal. I am obligated to share what I know in my life. All Christians are obligated to do that, but that's how we do it. We share. We don't impose. At least we're not supposed to. But, you know, you have to establish a moral compass. For me, my moral compass is my belief in Jesus Christ, my belief in God, my belief in eternity, my belief in heaven and hell. And I told you before, I think, in another YouTube video, I'll say it again, I do believe in heaven and hell. Those places exist in the Bible that talked about it quite a bit. And, you know, I developed a healthy fear of hell when I was in the hole. 29 months and 7 days in prison. I said, wow, if this is hell, but a million times worse as it's described in the Bible, I don't want any part of it. It's good to develop a healthy fear of things that are no good for you. Whatever it might be, whether it be drugs, gambling, alcohol, any kind of criminal activity, you should have a fear of it if it's no good for you. It's a healthy fear. Well, I developed that healthy fear of hell. Kind of pushed me in certain ways to really, you know, search and find out a little bit more about God. Now, I happen to believe in the Christian faith. I believe in Jesus Christ. The evidence for me that He existed, that He lived, that He died and rose from the dead is overwhelming. That's me. You may not see it that way. I hope one day that you do, because as Christians, we believe that it's a belief in Jesus Christ that gets you into heaven. And you know what? I don't want my worst enemy to go to hell. If hell really is what it's described to be, I don't want my worst enemy there. And hopefully everybody has an opportunity to atone for their sins. That's what we as Christians believe. And you know, as Christians, God gave us two greatest commandments. One, love God. Number two, love your neighbor as yourself. If you love God and you love your neighbor, and we can all practice this in the entire world, this world would be a lot better place, that's for sure. So here's what I'm telling you. I know some of you say, you said you weren't going to start to preach, but then you started to preach. You know, I'm sharing again. Sorry, I get carried away with it, but I believe in it. But here's what I would tell the 20-year-old Michael, who wasn't a Christian at that point. I grew up a Catholic, and I wasn't religious at all. I believed in God, but that was about it. I was not really a practicing Catholic, okay? That's just who I was. I would tell 20-year-old Michael, learn about your God. Believe in God. It's important throughout your life. That's who you should be accountable to in your life. That's what's going to keep you straight. Get a good moral compass, and a belief in a loving and just God is what gets you there. So those are the 5 things that I would tell the 20-year-old Michael, and that I tell all of you, whether you're 20, 25, whatever stage of life that you're in. I think if you go by these 5 directives that I've just given myself at 20, you'll have a good shot in this life, you know, barring sickness or things that we don't know, because people, we live in an uncertain world. Our world could change on a dime. Our life can change on a dime. We've seen it happen so many times. There are no guarantees in life. We know that. So, hopefully this was helpful to you. I can't go back to being 20. I can only try to, well, even my kids are over 20 now. I've tried to give them as good an upbringing as I possibly could. Failed in some regards, but hopefully succeeded in most. But that's about it for today. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get something out of it. And again, join my crew. You're going to hear a lot more good stuff, I promise you. And if you're in business, it's the place to be. It's a business community, people helping one another and getting the benefit of whatever advice and wisdom and wisdom I can give you. So that's about it for today. So what do I always say to you? And again, I say it from my heart. Be safe, be healthy, God bless you, and yes, I will see you next time.